Assalamu alaikum YouTube, this is Said Mirza. This video is going to be kind of off the cuff here. I don't really have a script to go by. But there's been a lot of thoughts that have been circling in my head for a while. So I figured I'd make a video about it just to kind of share some of the insights that I've had recently. And what really the core of the talk is about the fall of man from heaven to earth, and obviously the Quran narrates this story in many different forms, and we're going to touch upon those insights. But I guess to preface this talk, I wanted to talk about the system we live in, the evil and the corrupt system that we are all a part of, and we are actively assisting in a way. I mean, there's only so much you can do to kind of stay away from this system. You're still a part of the system, as in you pay taxes and you obviously consume. But there are degrees, and I'm not advocating that we go and live in a cave or something like that. Obviously, the prophets and messengers were also living in their evil societies and warning men and trying to basically come out of this filth intact. So that's the model that we are to follow. But at the same time, we need to learn to recognize evil for what it is. And in that respect, I think that a lot of believers um, are still very naive in sort of how they approach the world, wherein they think, these groups, the Al Kafirun and the Al Lazina Kafaru, and the Nazarenes, and certainly the Muslims as well, are just these isolated groups, and that, when the Quran is talking about standing up against these forces, that is just an abstract concept. That's not what it's about, because really the allazina kafaru is, as Brother Gerrans says, um, said many times, they are the elites, the indifferent, the ones who are indifferent to warning. As in, these people have just basically crossed all thresholds of decency. They don't believe in a God, and in the sense that they are basically here to exploit and use humanity. And when you actually get into Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Jack Ma, definitely Stalin and all these, Hitler and all these, Trump, these are all figureheads. But you actually get into the psyche of these guys and actually see what they're doing. And they have no shame, no guilt. They have a preconceived notion about themselves as being superior to others. And that we are built to, and they think of us as basically cattle, as something to be exploited. Everything to them is there for their exploitation. Now, when I was a software developer in my previous life, I used to work at a bank, and part of my job was to build softwares for ATM processing machines, the ATMs. And I didn't really quite realize the depth of the corruption and greed that I was being a part of. But what I was basically doing was building these softwares, and we were hiding their true function behind creative names such as HELOC fee and early withdrawal fee, and bonus, and all this nonsense terminology, which is basically doublespeak. And I'll touch on what doublespeak is in a bit. But all this nonsense the names and um, concepts were being done to basically hide the fact from common people that we were basically ripping them off. And that's really the truth of it. The bank uh, obviously, makes money on interest, and also makes a lot of money on fees. And so I was basically enabling that system. So what I'm trying to get at is that a lot of people, they have this idea, and maybe they're naive, but they think, you're either part of the problem, you're part of the solution. But it's not as clear cut as that, because we live in a very corrupt and evil system. which is based on exploitation primarily. And there's no escape from this system. The only escape is that you go live in a cave or something, which I'll tell you is unreasonable, because if that was the case, then the prophets and messengers would be going out and living in caves as well. They were a part of the society that they were sent to warn. So definitely, the Quran does not advocate that we leave our homes and leave the countries we are settled in and go to some other far flung place. And really, in today's world, this globalized economy, society, this there is no escape from this system of exploitation. There really is no escape. You go anywhere, the colors of the skins of men will change, the languages will change, but the system is still the same. So what I was trying to, I guess, get at was, we can try our best to further ourselves from the system, as in not assisting tyrants, not assisting exploiters. That's a way to, I guess, put our money where our mouth is. But I am certainly not saying that we should just cut off ourselves from the system, because there is no way to cut off from the system at the moment. God is obviously with the believers, and if the believers act, and God will basically give us a way out. Now, I mentioned double speak earlier, and I want to kind of explain to you what doublespeak is, because I see society, I see the people around me, and I'm not even talking about the kuffar or the munafiqeen, or any of these specialized groups that Muslims take to be specialized groups. I'm just talking general humanity, people you interact with on a day-to-day basis. You will notice that a lot of people are here enjoying life, in the sense that to them everything is a joke and it's fun and games. At least the people that I've met, and again, this has nothing to do with the atheists or whatever. I mean, Muslims. I grew up in a Muslim household. I had many Muslim friends, and so I interacted with them on a daily basis, and I was a part of that group, so I know what I speak of, and I'm sure your experiences will confirm the same. You will notice that a lot of people, they want to minimize pain and maximize pleasure. And that's the kind of the doctrine they operate on. And to them, it's about how do we get to enjoy. How can we make fun, enjoy? And when they sat in groups, that's all they did. To them, everything is just amusement. And more so, I think in the American culture, this has sort of been ingrained in the psyche, where if you meet, at least for me, when I met um, atheistic white men, most of them are, uh, you would see that to them, if I even talk about the Quran or about Judgment Day, I mean, it's just sort of a mocking attitude, where they're like, okay, yeah, yeah, we'll see what happens. And if you talk to them about what's happening in the world, about also, the agenda that's moving forward, the coronavirus, they won't take you seriously, because they'll just start labeling you as a conspiracy theorist or as a nut job or whatever. But to each his deeds. So I know where I stand, and they don't really know where they stand, because what they're standing on is basically quicksand, and it's engulfed them to the point where they are unable to logically approach any problem, and to them everything is just amusement. And so this whole agenda of doublespeak, you can see clearly in them, because they say one thing but they mean something else, and they don't even realize this. Interesting fact: the the U.S. government's Defense Department, which is called the Department of Defense (DoD), was actually called the War Ministry. Not a lot of people know this, but that's the truth. And the War Ministry is actually a more fitting title of what this organization is doing, because it's declared war on all the other countries in the world. And the Department of Defense name was changed because it's all doublespeak, because the connotation is that they're defending themselves against these aggressors when in reality they are the aggressors. So when people go through life and they use these terminologies, as in, uh, you only live once, the connotation is they don't believe in the afterlife. That's what it means. But now it's been turned into this sort of doublespeak where, forget your worries and enjoy yourselves. So, and again, one more thing that I wanted to mention is that this common this common usage of the term "oh my God," uh, to me it seems like you don't. It's one of those things where an atheist or a general person says "oh my God," as in it's just sort of like employing it as some of vain terminology when they don't really believe in a God. So, it's many people in this world, they're just so gone that they don't even realize what they're saying half the time. And if you point it out, um, they'll get defensive and they'll say, "No, that's not what I meant." But that's what I'm saying. This is the problem. There's a disconnect between what people are doing and what they think they're doing. And I think that's what, when the Quran says that their deeds have been made fair to them, this is what it's talking about. Now, coming back to the main thrust of the the talk, the fall of man. Now, man was created in the best of forms, and really, people don't have we don't really actually think about what that form was and where man has basically fallen down to, the lowest of the low. Uh, and I wanted to share some of the verses in the Quran that talk about this whole event to kind of give you an idea of how far we've fallen, and that there is no escape from this current situation unless we, and when I say we, I mean as in myself and you, uh, we shun our base desires and we rise up against the shaitan. We reform ourselves and speak the truth. It's very important. People think that the other person needs to change, but you really haven't been given any power over the other person. The only power you've been given is over yourself. So reform yourselves first, change yourselves first, and then you can be a model for others to look up to. So here we have the story of Adam in the Quran, and basically Adam is, my understanding is that he's a prototype of humanity. And if we actually read the verses with that sort of idea, we'll see that a lot of this has to talk has is talking about us. Now, first of all, I wanted to mention chapter 2, verse 30 says, "And when thy Lord said to the angels, I am placing a successor in the earth, they said, Wilt thou place therein one who will do harm therein and shed blood? When we give glory with thy praise and are holy unto thee, he said, I know what you know not." Now, our first question is, what does God mean by placing a successor in the earth? Is it that he is going to be God's represented on the earth, or is it more of a successor, as in the angels were the ones who were ruling, and then God intended to place a successor, to basically, um, to be after them, to come after them, as in he would be controlling everything in the earth. And to me, that seems more of a fitting understanding of this, because that's why the angels protested. And they said, We give you glory and praise. Why would you place him? Why would you basically remove us and place him as a successor in the earth? He is going to do evil, harm and shed blood. And God says, I know what you know not, which is a cryptic statement. But we do see down the line what it actually means when God says, I know what you know not. Because God, when he created Adam, he thought Adam and I'll give you the verse before, and then I'll kind of go over, give you a commentary on that. This is chapter 2, verses 31 to 33. And he taught Adam the names, all of them. Then presented he them to the angels, and said, Tell me the names of these, if you be truthful. They said, Glory be unto thee. We have no knowledge save what thou hast taught us. Thou art the knowing, the wise. He said, O Adam, tell thou them their names. And when he had told them their names, he said, Said I not to you that I know the unseen of the heavens and the earth? And I know what you reveal and what you conceal. So Adam was taught the names, all of them. Again, mm, people read the Quran, and I used to read the Quran like this. Now I've been actually trying to like engage my brain and think about these things. What does that mean? That he taught Adam the names, all of them. Now, if you go back to uh, knowledge, if you're gonna learn about a subject, the first thing you do is that you name that thing that you are trying to study. This is standard. When children are growing up, that's what they learn, the names of things. So really, that's the first step to gaining knowledge, is that you learn the name of that phenomena that you are trying to learn about. So Adam was given this this abstract understanding of things, as in he could name them, and angels weren't. So that's why he was given the stepping stone on which to build knowledge. And so the angels, and this is interesting, they said, Glory be unto thee. And this connects with, in the beginning when they said, We glorify you. So it's interesting, if you read the Quran, the angels, when they start, they usually start with Subhana, glory be unto thee. Anyway, so they say, We have no knowledge save what you taught us. And he said, O Adam, tell thou them their names. So Adam told them the names of all of these things, all of them, right? Kullu shay'in is what it says. And then God says, said I not to you, I know the unseen of the heavens and the earth. This connects with the previous set of verses where God said, I know what you know not, because truly God knows the unseen of the heavens and the earth. And the next part, and I know what you reveal and what you conceal. This is obviously a reference to Iblis, who was concealing his arrogance. Now, here's the interesting part. I'm going to read to you chapter 2, verse 34. And when we said to the angels, Submit to Adam, then they submitted, save Iblis. He refused and was proud, and was of those who spurned guidance while claiming virtue. And then we also have in chapter 7, verse 11 to 12. And we have created you, then have we fashioned you. Then said we to the angels, Submit to Adam. And they submitted, save Iblis. He was not of those who submit. He said, What hinders thee that thou dost not submit when I command thee? Said he, I am better than he. Thou createst me of fire, and thou createst him of clay. Something's interesting that I want to bring to your attention is that the Islamic narrative is that they were told to do sajda, as in they fall flat on their faces to Adam, which if you want to believe that, good for you. But really, we're missing a lot of things when we translate in this manner, or at least we think about it in that manner. A more fitting understanding would be that if you think about the angels, who are the malaika, which obviously, as you know, comes from the word, the root mim lam kaf, which means dominion. So they are given dominion over things, right? You have in the Quran, you have that these angels are given specific functions. The angel of death, is his function is to take the souls at the time of death. And Jibreel, who we can argue about whether he's a spirit or an angel, but whatever he is in charge of bringing knowledge down, revelation down. But I guess the core idea is that Malaika have been given these functions in the earth. So by that understanding, there's probably a Malaika who is in charge of the wind, and so forth. So what's basically is the Quran is talking about is that because man has been given the beginnings of knowledge, as in he can define terms and build upon that knowledge. At the end of the, I guess, the ultimate completion, the ultimate end game for man is that he will have power over everything, and that's why the angels were to submit to him, because all these angels, what they were controlling, those specific functions ultimately man could control. So this is the, I guess, the destiny of man, was the destiny of man before his fall. He was this uh, entity who would be in charge of processes in the earth. But it's interesting because if you look in this world we live in this scientific um, epoch, if you will, you'll notice that man does have the ability to control many things in the earth now that he did not have before because of knowledge, right? So even though the word science is sort of a corrupt word now, and it basically means, um, again, double speak. It's not real science. It's not based on truths. It's more based on conjecture. But at least the beginnings of it, the scientific truths and the scientific method, they were able to bring man to, be able to control many things. I mean, eh, he can control the weather. And again, this is part of those conspiracy theory realm where people are like, what do you mean they can control the weather? Yeah, man is controlling the weather. And whether you want to believe it or not, it is true. Man can definitely control. At least he can steer hurricanes, and I'm not gonna get into that aspect of it. You can research all of that on your own. But definitely, we created the nuclear bomb. We were able to exploit the atomic energy. Um, we are able to use the resources in the earth to create things. We have planes, we can fly. So there's a lot of things that man is able to control because of knowledge. So in a way, when God was saying to submit to Adam, to the Malaika, this was just sort of like because this was man's right, because man had been given knowledge. He had been given the names of all these, not full knowledge, only God has full knowledge, but he had been given the names of these things. And so because of that, he was elevated to a station where the angels, they were subservient to him. And that's really what it, to me, these set of verses mean. Now we have the interesting character here, Iblis, who said, I'm not going to submit to man. And because I'm better than him, he was arrogant, right? So if you want to think about one of the chief sins in the Quran, it's arrogance. And arrogance is what stops men from actually considering that this is actually a book from God. But what's interesting is that we have this whole narrative where basically Iblis tempts man. And I want to touch upon that as well because I think it's very relevant to our current situation. Okay, so now moving on, we have here now this is the point where the narrative shifts and Adam is in the garden with his companion, and basically he is tempted by the shaitan. And the word shaitan, really what it means is that the transgressing one, and it's a title applied to Iblis, who was the original. And my understanding is that Iblis was a malaika, and he was also a jinn. Now, why I'm saying that is because, and I'm sure people would disagree with me on this, but that's my understanding of it, is because the word malaika is a title. It means, like Malik. Malik means, um, king. So malaika is a title, and these beings, the jinn, they were created before man, and some of them were elevated to a higher position, became malaika, and the reason why Iblis Obviously Iblis is a jinn. Quran talks about that he was of the jinn, so that's not under dispute. The question is whether he was a malaika. And in the Christian accounts, definitely there's this concept of a fallen angel, and the Quran seems to be agreeing with that. And I'm not saying here that Christian scripture is authority on this subject. I'm just saying that there is parallels. But so what the Iblis was a malaika in the sense, because when God said to the angels submit, they submitted, save Iblis. Now, if you just think about this logically, if he was not a malaika, and if God was saying to the malaika to submit, then obviously that command did not apply to the Iblis. But it seems that it was applying to Iblis because he didn't do it, and God asked him, "Why didn't you do it?" It's sort of like those things. Let's just think about this in more of, I guess, a less abstract way. We have men, right, and then we have kings. Now, if there were, like 50 men standing there, and some of them were kings, and so I said, "Oh, kings, submit," right? So then, out of those 50 men, let's just say 10 were kings. Those 10 would submit. The rest of the 40 won't. Now, if those 10 submitted, the kings, and then one of them refused, so 9 kings submitted, one didn't, and I said, "Oh, kings, why did you not submit?" I'm talking about that the 10th king, right? And so that's kind of my understanding of how this all comes into play. Again, this is just um, we can agree to disagree. These are not some fundamental postulates that everyone has to agree on. But I'm interested in this stuff. I'm interested in the theology of the Quran. So I think about this stuff and I wanted to share it with you. But, please don't comment saying, you're wrong and blah, 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 because this is just discussion. I'm just talking to you about what I think about theology of the Quran. It's not really the central aspect of my doctrine. The central aspect of the doctrine is believe in God, the last day, and do good deeds. It's simple. It's, this is just some things that I think it is good to think about because it gives us more insight into our current predicament. Now, moving on. So basically, we have here um, the point where he said the shaitan asks God for some time to basically corrupt men, right? But and you can read about those verses here. The ones that are of interest are chapter 7, verses 14 through 18, and chapter 15, verses 36 to 39, and chapter 17, verses 62 to 64, and chapters 38, verses 79 through 85. I'm not going to go over them, but what I wanted to talk about is the point where they were uh, in the garden, the fall of Adam. And it says, "And we said, O Adam, dwell thou and thy wife in the garden, and eat thereof freely wheresoever you will. But approach not this tree, for then will you be among the wrongdoers." Chapter 2, verse 35. Okay, now we come to the interesting part here. This is from chapter 7, verses 20 through 22. "The Shaitan whispered to them that he might make manifest to them what was hidden from them of their shame, and said, Your Lord forbade you this tree only lest you become angels, or of those abiding eternally. And he swore to them, I am to you a sincere counselor. And he led them by deception. Then when they tasted of the tree, their shame was made manifest to them, and they began to draw over them some of the leaves of the garden. And their Lord called to them, Did I not forbid you that tree? And did I not say to you that the Shaitan was an open enemy to you?" Another set of verses here, chapter 20, verses 120 and 121. "But the Shaitan whispered to him, he said, O Adam, shall I show thee the tree of immortality and a dominion that decays not? And they ate thereof, and their shame was made manifest to them, and they began to draw over them some of the leaves of the garden, and Adam opposed his Lord, so he erred. Now, this is interesting that the shaitan is basically, first of all, he's whispering to Adam, and we get whispers day and night. The other thing is that he's talking about security, right? He's saying to Adam that if you eat from this tree, you will become angels. Um, he's tricking Adam because Adam is already above the angels. Why would he want to become an angel? Uh, so that's the tricking part. The other thing is that he's saying, "Are those abiding eternally?" And then later on, he says that I will show you that I shall show thee the tree of immortality and a dominion that decays not. So this is what Adam was worried about. That yeah, he has it good right now, but what's gonna happen later? Basically, security, right? He had fear of the unknown, and now this whole coronavirus nonsense that's going on. That's nothing new. We've always had some sort of nonsense like that before it was the terrorists and all that. So I mean, people are tricked into basically serving shaitan because they are uh, given false hope that they will have security, that they won't lose what they have. Because deep down inside, everyone knows that they will die and they will lose everything. So that's just the ultimate reality, right? There's no escape from that. But in the short term, people want to, keep their houses, they want to keep their cars, they want to keep their bank accounts, balance, whatever, whatever they have, their children. And so they compromise on their integrity, on their values, on their ethics, because they're afraid they'll lose it all. But it's a deception because you will ultimately lose everything. There's no way around that, right? But people don't see the big picture. They see the short-sighted, right? So this system we live in, this evil system, yeah, it promises you all this too. It says, just keep in line, just slave away at your 9 to 5 job, and obey, 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 and you won't lose anything. But if you actually really look into this system, you'll realize real quickly that it's actually lies. Because let's just take the dollar for instance, right? Or whatever your favorite currency is. This currency is actually a scam because it's being printed in a basement somewhere, right? And they're continuously printing more and more of it. So basically, what that means is that it's devaluing what you have, and so you are losing it bit by bit anyway. Now, if you spend that money in God's cause, God says He will multiply it for you, and it will be a store. Um, in the few in Jannah, it will be a store for you, right? So it makes much more sense to use that money to spend on the needy. And I'm not talking about going out and giving it to the Islamic Relief Foundation or Red Cross and all these corrupt organizations. I'm talking about actually using this money to spend on the homeless. A good idea is to maybe look up your local homeless shelter and just show up there with some food. Just pack up food in disposable containers, show up there, and people will be there who will take it. Or you can talk to the shelter itself to see if because they have food services, and ask them if you can give them food. I would definitely say, whatever you do, don't be naive because, again, this system is so corrupt that even the philanthropic organizations and the charity organizations are just completely a scam. You don't want to give these guys money because they'll just use it for, basically padding the next salary of the CEO or his bonus. But what I guess what I'm trying to say is that you will lose everything. We all will lose everything. That's just the way this is. This is God's decree. We will die, but the point is that we're gonna be raised up again. And that's the next life. That's the real life. That's we should be striving for. And Shaitan in this life will scare you and say, obey, obey, obey. Um, but you have to make a stand somewhere down the line. I mean, now in the US, they're basically coming out with this new thing where they're saying, oh, you have to put face masks on when you go to supermarkets. And so the question is are we supposed to, obey? Well, what are the choices? If you don't obey, you're gonna be banned out of that supermarket, right? That's fine. There's other places you can shop. I mean, are you telling me that you can't enter any place where without a mask? Well, that's not happening right now, but if enough people comply, that will probably happen. And then the next stage is vaccines. Are you gonna put vaccines in your body or not? And if you don't, what are the consequences? So I guess at this point now, we really have to start thinking about, making a stand. We have to make a stand somewhere, because there's no this whole idea that we don't, like Muslims say, there is no God but God. Okay, but if you keep acquiescing and keep compromising on everything to these bullies, to these people who basically think they're in charge of you, then yeah, you do think that they are gods because you are obeying them. It's one of those things where, look, these are not just abstract concepts, as in, oh, I'm not gonna call to anyone besides God, but I'm gonna fear them. I'm gonna fear what they do. I'm gonna, obey them, comply with them. No, there is a stand that needs to be done, and I don't know what's coming down the line. Obviously, that's something that only those people who are planning this know. But I do know that if people keep on compromising, if people keep on looking to these supposed experts and these doers of good, um, which I'm obviously being sarcastic right now, uh, these guys have really planned a hell for you. And this is no idle talk. I mean, when I say them plan a hell for you, I would suggest that you do a fair amount of research and look into what the plans are, and make sure you keep thinking about that double speak that I talked about, because these guys love to use double speak. And a good starting point is to research this World Health Organization, and its ties to Bill Gates and various other nefarious individuals, corrupt individuals, and organizations. This is no wonder Disneyland we're living in. This is a war, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, and you are the target. I am the target, and things are not gonna go back to normal, whatever that normal meant. They will not rest until they have subjugated all of humanity, and they have already subjugated humanity to a certain point where you don't have anything. You don't have any property rights. You don't have any. Yeah, because guess what? If you don't pay your taxes on your property, the government's going to come in and seize it. And that's the end of the story. And you don't have any resources. Back in the day, people used to have own cattle. They used to own um, land. They were able to protect that land. See, and didn't have to listen to propaganda day and night, streaming out of television, out of newspapers, with these weird characters, Dr. Fauci and Tedros and Mr. Gates, dictating how they live their lives and doing as they're told. I mean, if you actually try implementing all the things in the Quran, you can't even implement all those things, because guess what? They won't let you. So it's high time that we see this thing for what it is, and that we stand up. This is this is incumbent upon the believers. I mean, our forefathers, they obviously were not guided by God, and so they went through life as most people go through life, trying to minimize pain, and they suffered hardships, no doubt. Everyone does. But now that we are aware of what's going on, it's our duty to stand up, be men of God, and deliver God's messages, to study and teach the law of God, and to become just and moral men. And that's really the crux of the talk. And if we do all these things, then we can recover our station, the original intent for which man was created for, and to protect ourselves from being corrupted by being mired in this filth, that is the supreme achievement. And that is something to be worthy. It's a worthy endeavor. Anyway, those are my thoughts at the moment. God willing, until next time, peace be upon you.